I'm Scott Allen Miller. It's the 19th of September, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Nicaragua. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the need or the purpose of adaptation or assimilation into the culture of any place you're going to be moving to, but of course we'll be giving some specific examples of how it's going to apply here in Nicaragua and what makes Nicaragua pretty special in this regards. I'm recording this as we're just getting ready to head out to the restaurant where we are testing out the very final decision with all the last pricing and looking at the venue and showing the kids everything for my daughter's quinceañera, which is a perfect time to talk about both adaptation and assimilation because this is something that's very culturally impactful, something that's very meaningful here in this culture and that is very foreign to ours, coming from the northeastern United States and coming from a mixed Swiss and Italian background. So this is a very big bit of my children really becoming a part of the culture here, and so that leads directly into today's conversation. So we're going to get to that right after the bump. I want to say thank you to everyone who's been, because I put out a call, I said, you know, you got to get down and leave questions and comments in the show notes, because that really does help me come up with what I'm going to talk about on the show. And when I've said that, you guys really do reach out, and I've gotten a lot of those. We're not going to do one today, but I'm going to do more tomorrow. So if you did that and you're waiting for your answer, I'm going to try to get to you tomorrow. But thank you so much. That really is, it's not just something I say. Like, that really does help me make the show, because it's tough a lot of days to be like, what are we going to do today, right? And you guys do have questions, but I don't always know what they are. Like, the things that matter to you don't necessarily occur to me. So thank you so much. And if you do have questions, scroll down, take this opportunity while you're listening to me talk. You don't need to look at me or the little dog. You can scroll down, take this moment, and leave a comment. Just say hi, if nothing else. That helps YouTube know that you like the show. But ask your questions, and I'll do my best to get to you very quickly. Normally within a few days. Some people have waited a month. I'm sorry. With people who are moving here to Nicaragua, or looking to move to Nicaragua and anywhere, right? This applies generally. But I think that this aspect of relocation is really acutely evident in a place like Nicaragua, because most people who are looking to move here are coming from someplace like the United States, Canada, or Western Europe. And some people are coming from other places, but these represent the vast majority, maybe 95%. And especially of those that are able to move here, right? There may be people, I have occasionally requests from places where people are interested in moving, but realistically they can't make it happen. There may be visa barriers or travel barriers, or just the cost just doesn't make sense. So those countries, the ones that I mentioned, really drive the majority of relocation traffic into the country and to many places. So when you're looking at those cultures, while they do vary pretty wildly from each other, especially the United States, say the southern United States from northwestern Europe, that's probably your greatest divergent within that region, there's still a lot of similarities, especially around amenities and how life actually functions day to day. The ideas of traffic and the way that public transportation works, even if the amounts of it are very different, the way shopping works, the accessibility of products, the types of food that are available. Of course, you know, Europe has much better quality. There are things that are very different, but there's a certain commonality between them that tends to make it easy to move around that region without having an astronomical amount of change. But even so, moving from, say, the United States to, we'll just pick up, to Greece, is going to have a language barrier, a cultural barrier. There's a lot of things. It truly is quite a bit of shock when you get to, in either direction, just how different these places are, things you would want to adapt to in order to really enjoy life, to be able to fit in with other people, to be able to make friends easily, to have a normal social life, to have a really good, just general life. And part of that is because the weather is different, the traffic is different, the lay of the land, the need to take ferries places if you live on an island, how the cities are laid out, how public transportation works, how other people enjoy their free time, right? Maybe they go to restaurants differently or eat at a different time of day. These are things that you probably want to adapt to in order to really enjoy living in Greece. Now, of course, you don't have to adapt to them immediately. You would potentially move and discover what those things are and pick and choose what you want to adapt to. You know, if you still want to eat at 5 o'clock and not at 9 o'clock for your dinner, that's up to you, and no one's going to stop you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to go out and eat when the restaurants are at their peak, if you want to meet other people having dinner and then go out to the bar with them afterwards, or, you know, fit into society and just have those interactions, well, that may be something that you want to intentionally adjust to so that you're fitting in with other people and your life there is similar to what other people are experiencing. This is a big thing in Italy, a huge part of when people talk about how wonderful Italian culture is. And of course, Italy's a big place and the culture varies from place to place. But if you're living in Tuscany, for example, and you really want to experience what life is like there, and you decide that you're going to eat at 5 o'clock, you're going to eat fast food, and you're going to go to bed immediately thereafter, your experience is going to be incredibly different than if you took the time to adjust to how Tuscans actually live, and you're going out to dinner at 8 o'clock, and you're spending several hours doing it, and you're enjoying your wine afterwards, and then slowly making your way around the city doing the passeggiata with all the other people who are doing that, and you're becoming integrated into that lifestyle. Your experience of Italy is going to be wildly different than living in the same place and simply trying to live your old lifestyle without adapting. And neither of these is even considering if you're going to learn the language or anything of that sort. Just taking the time to live like an Italian will give you an opportunity to experience the lifestyle that they have, which is probably what you're there for. Not necessarily. In some cases, you may not be there because of the lifestyle. You're there because it's where you had a visa. It's just where you could afford. There's lots of factors that may drive you to a place. You just love the weather. You don't care about the culture. That can be fine too. But if you really want to get the advantages, if you want to get the things that people talk about when they say, oh, I love living in Italy, you kind of have to live in Italy to do that. You could say the same thing about the United States. Of course, if you were going to move to the United States and you tried to live like an Italian, you would discover that while you kind of could, you would be outside of societal norms. You would not naturally make friends. You wouldn't be running into the kind of people that you'd be looking to run into, or anyone at all, because you're eating at a time where restaurants are closing and people don't appreciate it and people aren't lingering over food. It's very, very difficult. And so if you wanted to take best advantage of living in the United States, you would want to adapt pretty heavily and live a different lifestyle. Speaking of assimilating, I needed to run away for an entire day because we went out first to do a test of a venue for my daughter's quinceañera, which is coming up in November. And so that is one way that we have, over quite a period of time, assimilated to life here. And then we almost immediately went to a friend's house where we watched the procession of the patron saint of Leon, which is the Virgin Mary of Mercedes, the Virgin of Mercy. That is a huge event here for the city because it is the city's patron saint since 1912, and it's a huge procession. We filmed some of that, but I'm not going to be showing that for several days yet. Hopefully we got good footage. I think we did, so I'll bring some of that to you. It is, I'll be honest, it's a pretty boring procession, but it's an important cultural event, and I would estimate that more than 50,000 people came out for that, which is pretty incredible considering the size of the city. That's a pretty significant percentage of the population between people who are actually in the procession, which you'll see is a completely insane number of people, and the number of people watching, which is even bigger, and the number of people who are like ancillarily participating or just hanging out in the churches. Like, the number of people who come out is mind-boggling. It's hard to believe a city can produce that many people to put on the street. All of that being said, one of the things, and these things are actually leading me to my next point, which is the act of assimilating, the act of becoming a part of the culture, which you'll never become 100% anywhere, but not likely, is that it's going to take time. And when you first arrive in a place, it requires a conscious effort in most cases to really want to make that transition, to want that change, to become a part of that culture and experience it in that way. And so that's important. But it's also very important to understand that if that is what you want to do, and that's fantastic, and I highly recommend it in most cases, it's not for everyone, right? Of course. But if that is a direction that you want to go, and to some degree that will happen naturally. You may be like, I'm not really, I just kind of want to do my thing, and I just really like the weather, I just really like the cost of living, I just really like something, the food, and that's why I'm going. But over time, you're probably going to discover that the outside world has pressures on you, and you are likely to morph some amount, some people a lot, and some people very little, but many people moving to a new place over time slowly just take on that culture. You don't realize how much of what you do and how you interact with society is caused by social pressures from the places that you came with, right? Just living in the United States puts some pressure on you to eat at fast food on a regular basis or a semi-regular basis. You don't have to. Of course you can avoid it, but it's a little bit more effort, and so many things drive you in that direction. But just the way that suburbia is structured leads you in that direction from time to time. And if you're doing the same thing, you're moving to Nicaragua, you're going to naturally move towards, for example, seeing live music on a regular basis. Why? Just because it's so much more available. It's where people are going. You're so much more likely to simply encounter someone who's going to pull you in that direction, and you'll be like, well, I guess I could go do that rather than something else, because you want to participate in something, and over time you'll likely find that you're going to adjust in that way, just naturally. So even if it's not something that you want to do, you're probably going to do some amount of it no matter what. But to really do this, it takes time, generally years, and there's a lot of things that go into it. How much time you have to spend with people, how much you speak the language, how much you're able to go out, what your budgets are, what the lifestyle of the place you're coming from and going to are like. All these things will play a factor. If you're moving from Spain to Italy, it's going to be very quick for you to adjust because the changes are quite minor in the grand scheme of things. But if you're moving from Texas to Shanghai, you're going to find that it takes a really long time to make that adjustment. However, there is a certain possibility that by moving to a place that is dramatically different rather than just a little bit different, that you may actually assimilate just a little bit faster because of the giant leap. If you're moving from, say, Texas to New York, there's a real possibility that you're going to be able to retain much of your Texasness in New York, and people are going to see it as being a little bit quirky or just a little bit of your personality traits. And it's not going to be seen as something that really needs to change, and that may make it easier to retain so that you could spend an entire life living in a different place and never really assimilate necessarily, because you were never that far outside. But if you were to make that move to Shanghai, for example, you are much more likely to sit down and make a really concerted effort to learn the language, to make a really concerted effort, or have no choice but to learn how to go to the local restaurants and eat local food. The things that you would normally use as comfort food or whatever simply aren't available. So because of the massive change, you may be forced to make a bit of a assimilation that you wouldn't necessarily intentionally make on your own. Coming to Nicaragua, there is some chance, if you're coming from most of the places I mentioned, for that to happen. The overall lifestyle here is on average so different. The availability of products, the lack of fast food, things like that are so dramatically different that there is a certain amount of being thrust into it, and you may want to sit down and really take some time to say, okay, I got to learn the language. I got to go out and meet people. I've got to become part of a group, and I need to do things, and I need to figure out how other people are living life here, and I'm going to emulate that. And of course, adjusting for your own personal preferences, but really looking for, how would I fit into this? How would I be happy in this society? And that may happen. So you may experience, even coming to Latin America, which feels like it should be much less of a change, especially if you're coming from like the southern United States, where, oh, well, I already have a lot of Latino culture, I already have a lot of Spanish being spoken. How different can the lifestyle be? And the answer is quite significant in most cases. So that choice, that desire to want to change is a big factor in coming to another country. But really plan for whether it's just something you're going to slowly acquire as a change over time, or if it is something that you are going to make this massive change. You're just going to change your life. You're going to put in a huge effort. This is what you want. You're going to focus on it and really work hard. It is still going to take a very long time, because it's going to take you a long time to learn the language. It's going to take you a long time to really get a feel for what people are doing. It's going to take you a long time to create a social group of friends and acquaintances and people that you will spend time with and learn the ins and outs of society and life and everything else. It is not going to be a fast process. You may find that you assimilate enough quickly that you're able to do fun things and have people to hang out with, but you may find that it takes a very long time. Just like if you were dropped into a new place in your home country, if you moved to a completely new area that was far away and you didn't have any physical connection to anyone you ever knew before, yes, you probably are going to be able to make friends, you're going to meet people, but it could be quite some time before you really have a group that you hang out with. It may be fast, depending on who you connect with and what their level of communications is able to be with you, or what kinds of things you have in common. And the same thing, coming to another country, you're very likely to experience a situation where it could be a few months or it could be over a year before you really manage to make really great connections and get to know lots of people and put together a social group that really resonates with you. So planning. That you're going to need to give that time. Planning that is something that is a long process is important. Now, if you're coming down as a couple, you're coming down as a family, that's probably going to, in many cases, lengthen that time because you're naturally going to be more insular. The option to stay home is much higher. The option to only do things together, to go to dinner as a couple and not go out and meet people at an event, much, much higher. But in other cases, when you're a couple or a family, you may be much more likely to individually make connections with different people or feel much more confident meeting people. So everybody's different. But all of these things are things to consider. How is it likely to play out for you? And there's a lot of unknowns, right? And that's always going to be the case. Lots of surprises that you need to do your best to plan around, at least mentally. Be mentally prepared. These are things that may or may not happen, and how are you going to adjust for them over time? Thanks for joining me today. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, you can help support the channel by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. That comes directly to me and does so much to help pay for all the things that there's a lot of cost that goes into making this channel, from cameras to computers and the time to edit. I spend between 4 and 8 hours per day producing this show, so that's a lot of time. And I really appreciate when you guys reach out and leave comments in the channel, or you like and subscribe, join other channels. A lot of people have done that this week because I kind of put out a call for that. And buying me a coffee, that alerts me every time you do, and it really is a huge vote of confidence in the work that I'm doing here. This is a lot of my time, and I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me, so thank you to everyone who has done that. And if you're looking for assistance with relocation or just someone to talk to about their whatever, shoot us an email, info@relocatenicaragua.com. We'd love to talk to you, whether it's just a phone consultation or you're looking for someone to give you a private tour of the country or help you find an apartment. Whatever you need, shoot us an email, and we'd love to talk to you about what we might be able to offer to help you evaluate Nicaragua primarily, right? You always start primarily start with evaluating, make those decisions, and then if this is a place that you truly want to attempt to adapt and assimilate into, for sure, reach out. We'd love to help with that journey. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. Again, all the things. Watch another show. Let it play in the background. Go grab one of those concerts. Subscribe to @Nicarumba on YouTube. That's where we have all the concerts now instead of on this channel. And I will see all of you tomorrow.